Okay, just a really quick update video on the Everdrive X5 from Krikzz, the GBA Everdrive. As you can see, I'm going to put it in some real hardware, and that's really the goal of the Everdrives, to make sure that you can keep your original hardware and emulate the games a lot more easily than having to use other equipment. Now, in my previous video, I did mention that with other flash cards like this one, you had to update the firmware on your GBA, and that's completely wrong. Someone's helpfully pointed out on the YouTube comments that what that is on these cartridges, to keep them updated, you have to flash the firmware on the actual cartridge itself. So that's what I was thinking the extra step was. Obviously with Krikzz version, no patching needed at all. It's just plug and play. You're running up and running really quickly with that. It's easy to just drag all your ROMs across from your PC, and away you go really. So this one's much quicker and easier to get up and running with. And if we turn this one on, I'll just run through, and I have found and read a few posts since that there can be some issues on certain SD cards. Now, I've found that this one, I'm using a Kingston at the moment, and it's really reliable. I've not got any problems with that at all. It just fires up. But Samsung, I had intermittent issues with. I think some people have had problems with Sony's and other brands. It might be to do with the way it's formatted, but it should be FAT32, and it should be pretty clear cut whether it works or not. So I formatted these SDs in exactly the same way, but Samsung, for whatever reason, or at least the Evo brand, it doesn't seem to want to play ball. So I've stuck with this one. And I was going to put the full GBA ROM set on here, which is, I think it's about 20 gigs, something like that. But then running through them, I'm never going to play Barbie, so I'm not putting that on here. I'm just putting the ones that I do play. And to be honest, that's not an awful lot. It'd be well under, I don't know, 4 or 5 gig, I would have thought, to be honest. And I don't know about the latest Easy Flash, but at least this one I've got, which is probably, I don't know, maybe 3, maybe 4 years old, it insists on a mini SD adapter in there, and I think it will only accept up to 2 gig as a maximum card size, and broadly that's not a problem, but it'd be nice if it would support a lot more, like Krikzz's GBA does, or Everdrive-GBA, and that goes up to something like 64 gig, so it's pretty, it's going to hold everything. Okay, so just running through here, obviously one of the key features that I mentioned before on the new cartridge is the support for real-time clock, and I've had a couple of requests to test out some games, so I put a test folder here, and if we just go in there, we can try Boktai 2, which should, I understand, need real-time clock support. So if I give that one a go, I haven't even run this at all, so this is the first time. Select and start. It's a 16 meg game, so might take a second, but as you can see, pretty quick. And I'll put the Easy Flash 4 in a minute, and you'll see that it is not pretty quick to load games. Okay, so obviously that fired up, no problem at all. Okay, so let's go in there. How do I get down there? Okay, so what's the date today? It's the 8th, and it's the 8th of 2016. At, what's the time? It's about 9:22. Okay, region. No, I'm not in Iceland. Okay, London. Now, I haven't tried this one on the Easy Flash 4, so I don't know if it would have let me get that far, but it seems fine so far on this one, no problems at all. Boktai 2, Solar Boy Django. I've never heard of this before. Yeah, Django, that's okay. How do we do that? Yes. Okay, I'm not sure I can skip this, but you can, so feel free to fast forward this. Let's go, Superboy Django. Right. And if there's a start menu section or... Ooh. Okay. No, yeah, I don't know if I can get to I don't know how. Maybe you get to a certain point in the game to save. I haven't played it before. It's quite a good game. Great graphics. Anyway, right. I'm not here to play this. I am. No, sleep, config, status, valuables. Item map. Okay, nope, still can't see a save method on that necessarily. If I quit that, we'll just go into the save folder and you can see if it's created a save file there. So yeah, it boots up pretty quick. And if I go to GBA sys and save folder, okay, so it hasn't written a file there, so I didn't get the opportunity to save that, but that's where they would go. As you can see in there, I've got I've got Mario Golf that I played earlier, so it's created the save file there. And I have found as well from the Easy Flash 4, you can copy the save files across here, rename them to be the same, make sure they're the same name as the ROM on the Everdrive-GBA, and they work fine. They're more specific on the Everdrive-GBA, so for example, on here they're all named .sav.sav. But here they need to be, depending on how the game saves, it's either a flash save, an EEPROM save, or an SRAM save. And because of that, the file name would end .srm for SRAM, .eep for EEPROM, or .fla for flash. So as long as you work out what type of save game the game should have, you can just name it correctly. Or you can do trial and error, and it just, you'll get it right in 3 goes. So it's not particularly difficult to work that out. Okay, so just going back here, before, if I press select on the main screen, on the other video I did show the options that are down here. So you've got the save type, which was the ones we were talking about a second ago, EEPROM and SRAM and flash. Swap, you know what the just to flip the function of the buttons, and then quick boot. I haven't tried this yet, so let's put on there quick boot. So I just check that seal save there. Options, quick boot still on. So let me turn that off then and put that back on. Okay, I'm not sure that was massively quicker than normal, but the options there. Okay, so bring up those options again. And real-time clock. Again, it always seems to automatically adjust depending on the game that you're on. Then if I go to those options, and obviously recently played is exactly that, start random game. Device info shows me that assembly date information, etc., and the OS version I'm using, which you can get from Krikz's site to update it. Diagnostics, it will take a second, but again, whilst it might take a bit for me, you can just fast forward this. So it's writing to the SD card to test it out. Now on my Samsung card that didn't really want to be reliable, this passed okay, so I wouldn't necessarily say if this runs okay, your SD card's fine, but if you do have problems with it, it is worth trying a different brand just to see if you get better results. And someone's posted up on one of the forums that it might be the way that FAT32 gets written, so you can use different cluster allocation sizes, so you can write FAT32 in a slightly different way. But I found this Kingston card works fine, so I'm just sticking with that for the minute. And it's even in class 4 as well, and despite it not being particularly fast, I'd say it works really well, and I haven't noticed any slowdown. I'm hopefully going to get all OKs there. There we go, and it's finished. So you can see all the example data you get in the diagnostic menu output. Then about, so you can see here support details, serial number, whatever an RC is, but just gives you a little breakdown of the details and the controls to use. And as I said before on the other video, GBA sys folder, if that isn't there, you get some helpful information up here saying create the folder, you get it from here and you can put the files in there. So that's all pretty straightforward. So going back to the test folder, you can see here we gave Boktai 2 a go. Let's try Max Payne. Again, 16 meg, so let's see how that loads. Again, pretty swift. And all of the games that I've tried seem to run absolutely fine. I haven't found one that fails yet, unless of course I'm using a DUF SD card. Okay.
To make any kind of sense of it, I need to go back 3 years. Back to the night the pain started. I was still on a force back then, NYPD, Manhattan, Midtown.
No problems with this one, it's running pretty well. Again, I haven't played this one before, so probably not going to be particularly good. Audio is coming through really well, sounds good quality. And there we go. Okay, so quit that one. Obviously this cartridge, whilst it's a bit bigger, does work quite happily on the full range of Game Boy Advances, whether it's the standard one, the SP, or variants, and you've got works fine with DS as well, so it's pretty flexible in what that will work in at all. It won't run, or I guess work in, well obviously it won't work in a Game Boy, but it won't run Game Boy ROMs, unlike the actual SP itself, or GBA itself. It won't run Game Boy ROMs or Game Boy Color ROMs, so you can't get it to run those ones. As I said, bear in mind if you get any issues with this, try out different SD cards, because that does tend to be the problem. I haven't had a single problem since I swapped to this brand. I'll flip in the Easy Flash card in a second and you'll see the speed differences, so you can check out that as well. And you'll notice as well on Krikzz site, this is called the X5. So maybe with future models, he might make one that's flash. It might lose some functionality maybe, because maybe it has to be this big, but maybe the future models will be flash with that. And maybe they support save states. Obviously this supports save games as normal, but maybe you can actually get save snapshots that some of his other Everdrive models support at the moment. And the other thing actually, in the test area here, I've never heard of this PocketNES before. So I obviously don't use my GBA enough, but I think user Ronin on the GBA temp forums mentioned it, and I gave it a go, and it's brilliant. It's a little emulator in an emulator. So basically the PocketNES application on Windows wraps up original Nintendo Entertainment System ROMs in an option. So I've got a GBA ROM here, it's only 1 meg because it holds about 4 Nintendo ROMs. And if I run that, select and start, there, I've got a little mini menu of 4 games that I've wrapped up in it, and it's effectively a NES emulator, and it works fine. So I gave Batman Returns a go earlier, but I don't know, maybe got 2 Super Mario Brothers there. Let's try Castlevania. If I start that, I'm straight in there and I can press start. And I'm playing Castlevania on the NES on the GBA, which is fantastic. I didn't know about this. I'll certainly be using it, getting a few extra ROMs on this card. It works flawlessly as far as I can tell. Brilliant little emulator. And I think there's a similar one called GBA, something like that, which is for Game Boy Color. So I imagine it works in the same way, but this one works no problem at all. So anyway, I'll quickly show you about the speed differences that you've got with an Easy Flash. So Easy Flash in, I'd say maybe the only benefit of the Easy Flash would be the flush finish, but again, that's personal preference. So if we fire that up, now I was loading some 16 meg games there, and they load pretty swiftly on the Game Boy Advance Everdrive. Now in here, if I choose another 16 meg, I mean you can get 32 meg as well, but let's have a look for, okay, so the biggest one there is 8. What have we got there? 8 again. 16, there we go. So let's try loading Fire Emblem. As you can see, it would have loaded some time ago on Krikzz GBA Everdrive. This one's still going. And if you want to flip between games, you know, try a bit of this game, a bit of that game, this can get a bit, I don't know, it's a bit tiresome. I mean, if you're going to spend a lot of time in a game, it's not that bad to wait, but it's clearly not as advanced as Kriksz's model there. The delay is much bigger. Anyway, if there's any other details you need or some other information that I can give about the Everdrive cartridge, then please post comments on the video and I'll see if I can help. Thanks for watching.